Salutations, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. These days I'm going to say I am George from Ireland rather than this is. And this video is about President Trump's State of the Union address. Well, in case you didn't know, these are delivered before Congress in January every year. And it's been going on for about a century. Prior to that, it was written as a letter, and the president didn't actually read it out in Congress in person. Now, the president's not a member of Congress, and he can only get there only if he's invited by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And he, or in this case she, is the leader of the larger of the two parties in the House of Representatives. And at the moment, it's the Democrats, that's Nancy Pelosi. So she refused to invite him when the shutdown was going on, and she has since invited him. Now, at the end of the shutdown, there might be another one very soon in the United States. Now, Trump's oration was not as barbed as many people had anticipated. So why was he more emollient? Well, of course, he doesn't read these things. I mean, he's perhaps as surprised as the people hearing it. His delivery is actually unusually good, considering it's more or less extemporaneous. Well, he's having to read it in real time. He didn't rehearse. He never practices things, so he shoots from the lip. Why did his staffers write a fairly mild one? Well, they must have toned it down because they realise they need cooperation with the Democrats if there's to be any chance of a border barrier. They're usually not calling it a wall these days. So there's no point in getting the Democrats back up. If you go out there all guns blazing, if you're hideously insulting towards the Democrats, you are less likely to get them to play ball with you. So Trump was reportedly bitterly disillusioned that the speech was not more vituperative, because that's his style, inveighing against people. But there was some vehemence in the tone, even if not the actual words. So will there be another shutdown? I think almost certainly there will be. Well, I'll come back to that in a moment. Remember that we're out of the shutdown. Could be another shutdown in another few days. And the shutdown hurt his approval, and indeed that of the Republican Party, so it went down and down almost every day. Since the end of the shutdown, it has recovered a bit. If we go on without another shutdown, would it recover to where it was back in December? I think probably not quite, but get close. But he probably feels he is compelled to go for another shutdown, even though wiser counsels in his party are trying to beseech him not to do so. They're pleading him not to do so because as the shutdown failed first time, it'll fail second time. Now, obviously, he's got his partisan hacks like Sean Hannity and Judge Jeanine Pirro saying it wasn't a failure. Well, it was. Your stated objective in the shutdown was to get the funding for the wall, and you got not a cent. If you hadn't gone for that shutdown, you were going to get some funding for more Border Patrol agents. That was something for border security. You got nothing. So it's an absolutely open and shut case. It was a defeat for Trump. No two ways about it. But of course, Hannity and Jeanine Pirro, they will deny things which are as plain as the nose on my face. They'll just tell the most bare-faced lies all the time, just like Trump lies fragrantly. And his speech was replete with untruths. So this plethora of misstatements in his speech is really standard fare now, and Trumpers will just lap it up. It's par for the course with Trump. A nice golfing metaphor, as he owns golf courses. So if he doesn't even attempt to get this border wall, then it's not going to be pretty amongst his base. So he's either got to go for another shutdown or more likely a state of emergency. Will that work? I don't know the law sufficiently well. I don't know whether the Supreme Court will say, yes, it is an emergency. If it's an emergency, he should have done it ages ago. Should have done it in day one. So patently it's not an emergency, especially when border crossings, and obviously they're difficult to estimate, but they're supposed to be the lowest since 1971. Now, bear in mind, that's the absolute number. So we'll go back to 1971, the population of the United States was something like 250 million, is now about 330 million. So say 500,000 people come across a year. 500,000 people come across a year in 1971 was obviously a greater proportion in relation to the US population. Do you see what I mean? So the impact of 500,000 illegal people arriving in the United States today is much less than it was in 1971. So in both absolute and relative terms, this problem is less and less serious than ever before. And of course, there's illegal immigration via legal ports of entry. People arriving lawfully, but just overstaying their visa. And just like those poor Indian students who were duped into paying tens of thousands of dollars for a bogus college and now got arrested. May well have done so in good faith, because it's almost impossible to navigate all these forms, and so they leave it to agents and then they get conned. So his base will be enraged if he doesn't attempt to give him the wall. The wall policy being so gargantuan, so flagrant, so visible, that if he fails to do it, it's going to hurt his chances of re-election badly. And it was staggering, his chutzpah, the way he would tout a defeat as a success. More women in Congress than ever before. Yes, that's true. And the great majority of them are from the other party. Because the Democrats won by 80 percentage points, they got a lot more people in, including a lot more women in. And there are a lot more Democratic women than there are Republican women. So even though that's a setback for him, and he's completely galvanized women to vote against him because of his braggadocio when it comes to the sex crimes he went on record to say he committed. He thinks that's a success, that he's unpopular, people are voting against him. Well, it beggars belief. Now, then, in an awe-striking moment, he referenced some Holocaust survivors who were in the audience, okay? So garnering some sympathy for them, and this was meant to make him seem what? Gallant, compassionate, that he has a shred of decency. Well, I thought it was bitterly ironic yet again. These Holocaust victims, they suffered due to racial and religious hatred, stoked by a deranged, pernicious, egotistical, narcissistic, lying demagogue. Sound familiar? Now, Hitler wanted to kick out legal as well as illegal immigrants. He did a bit of that. Some Polish Jews who were legally in Germany in the 30s, well before the Holocaust, were expelled. That was an example. And Trump, well, does he want to kick out legal immigrants? Not quite sure that he does. He wants those who are legally studying the United States to find it very difficult to get the right to work in the United States. So Hitler built a wall, the Siegfried Line. Incidentally, I'm not saying it's always bad to build walls. He didn't like fake news, despite he was the one who mass-produced fake news, and he called all sorts of people enemies of the people. Now, Trump is not Hitler. Come on. Because, Hitler was not a draft dodger. Hitler did not commit sex crimes. And, Hitler actually wrote a bit of his own book. There we are. So, joking aside, incidentally, Trump has not committed genocide, nor has he advocated for it. I don't think he will do it. But I'd like to see some sort of refutation of the other comparisons I drew between them prior to that. Anyway, and Trump, he lambasted partisan investigations. Well, these investigations led by Republicans whom you appointed. They're not partisan investigations. So he's obviously very scared of what they'll find. Why is he so petrified? They're getting close. And obviously there's something ready to investigate. There have been 7 guilty verdicts saying we can't have investigations if we have legislation at the same time. Yes, you can. There have been investigations on and off throughout US history, and there have been legislation every year. So that was yet another honking fallacy. And saying, we can have peace, we can have war. Yeah, and you're the one who's threatening war against Iran. You're the one who ripped up the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And you're the one who can't make your mind up about Syria and Afghanistan. You're withdrawing troops, but not totally. So enough there, they can get killed. They can't really achieve anything. You just pull out altogether, or indeed actually fight. And there he is, wavering in between the two. What a flip-flopper. Hovering in between a half-war and complete withdrawal. So I think he's threatening war. I think if the investigation carries on, if that's getting close to him, he may well start a war against Iran or something like that, in a way to divert attention from these investigations. He's a commander-in-chief. People rallied to him in a moment of crisis, like Bush after 9/11. And what else? It's a bit like Abraham Lincoln saying, I remember that old Dutch farmer who said, don't change horses midstream. When you're in the midst of an exceptionally tricky and trying situation, you shouldn't change leader. That's why Lincoln was confident of re-election in November 1864, even though the war began fairly badly up until that point. So, Trump may start a war. Obviously, Congress would have to vote money for this conflict. Yeah, that's that. Anyway, not that surprising, actually. Certainly uninspiring. He went on for a long time. His claque of Republicans didn't give him as vociferous applause as they did last year. So even they are wearying of his infantile antics.